Okay, I'm gonna share with you some things that I've been learning recently. The first thing is there's only so much you can learn in a studio. At some point, you have to go out there in real life and meet these people whose stories you're gonna tell. Class is for technique and life is for artistry, which is why drama schools reject students all the time and tell them to go travel, because how are you supposed to portray heartbreak if you haven't been through it to a certain extent? I want to say for the last 3 years, I've noticed a phenomena where the more I surf and the more I climb, the more I camp, the more I hang out with my muggle friends, the more I meet strangers, talk to strangers, go to live music, go to jazz, learn about history, the more I get better at dance. And the faster it is than actual dance training, because I'm training something else, it's artistry. I'm getting a taste and a perspective for life. Art that's inspired by other art will be far less potent than art that's inspired by life directly itself. And that's the stuff that I'm interested in. I guess what I'm trying to say is get out of the studios, and also stop giving your power away to these people and these institutions and these teachers who are telling you you're not enough and you need to work on this technique and that technique and yada yada yada. Like, half of y'all are so incredible. I wish you saw yourself from my eyes, because half of y'all are like just in this study loop of like constant training, and I'm telling you that at some point the studio is not going to be enough. Does that make sense? Also, if you want to learn how to groove, go party. That's how party grooves were created. And you don't need to know what they are even, because it's in the music. You'll end up doing these classic grooves because the music will force you to, especially if you're going to good live music venues. If you want to learn heels, you better start walking in them in your day-to-day life. People who just wear their heels once a year at a wedding and then rock up to dance classes, there's so much, in my opinion, there's so much that you're missing out on. Like, the only way to earn that ankle strength is by living in your heels. Heels is a way of life. It's when you walk into the room with a clackety-clack, it says, I am here. And you learn to hold your presence and not cower away at that. If you want to learn hip hop, listen to hip hop music. There, I said it. I said it. I love curiosity. It's one of my highest values. I'm constantly learning about something. At the moment, I'm deep in the trenches of World War One. I think I've listened to about 10 hours worth of lectures in the last week. I kid you not. And I'm just so curious and nerdy about whatever I'm obsessing over. And I also am so interested in humans and their stories, and I love to collect stories. And my friends will say that I always have some crazy story where I've met a stranger and spent like hours with them and just chatted about life. And most recently, this is so silly, and I don't condone this, okay? I don't condone this, but it was just such a beautiful opportunity that came at the perfect time. Sounds so bad, but most recently, this guy I met, he had just gotten out of prison the day before. This is the most artiest story you've ever heard. And anyway, I spent an hour with him. I was very much safe. I was in a safe environment, which is why I could do it. And he just told me his life story. And it was fantastic. And like, he said he was framed. And he showed me documentation for this, but I mean, don't they all? But anyway, I bring that up because this is a man that I would never ever usually cross paths with or meet, and the opportunity presented itself in a very safe environment, and it was really beautiful to get to know him and his story. And when someone gives you their story and their soul essence, that is, I don't take that lightly. Like, that is so beautiful. And I like to think that I'm collecting stories and holding people with me in my art and carrying their stories into my art, telling their stories with honor and reverence and in memory of them, because fundamentally it's all just our human experience, our collective shared human experience. And there are energetic threads like a spider web that connect us all. This man's not much different to me. You know, sure, he's done some very, very questionable things in his life, but we all have shadow aspects. We all have these, we're all capable of evil. We're all capable of so much more than we know that we're capable of. I think we're all infinite, fundamentally. This guy that I surf with every now and then, occasionally, he has the most crazy story. His life is like a movie, where his ex-boss was batshit crazy, and he kidnapped him, locked him up, and tortured him. This poor man was completely traumatized and basically had to start his life from scratch and do therapy, and he found surfing, and yeah, I won't give too much more than that, but basically what I learned from that story is that the sheer human resilience of, you could be dealt the worst cards but still rise above it. And this isn't someone who's famous or online, or and you just would never know, but people are like walking miracles, and they've been through so much, and they're so resilient, and it's just like, your life is a movie in a way. Like, his life was definitely a movie. I couldn't believe some of the things he was telling me. So I've been learning about art history as well, and one of my favorite movements within art history is Romanticism. And Romanticism came at the turn of the 19th century in response and reaction to the Industrial Revolution, and people rejecting that and turning to nature and finding the sublime in nature and God. And I believe that it was the introduction of pantheism in Western society. And basically a whole sequence of events emerged for this to happen. Thomas Chatterton, who was a young poet that killed himself due to not being able to pursue his art because of his parents. And then his poetry blew up, and the whole artistic community held his story with such reverence and almost romanticized his death as a means of like showcasing the importance of art. I'm probably butchering this story, but Thomas Chatterton dies, then you have these whole sequence of events of things that happen to create Romanticism. And one of the best things about Romanticism, besides the pantheistic elements, which is, I'm such a pantheist, it was the first period in our history, in our human history, where art was about self-expression, was about the self. Whereas before that, prior to that in history, art was always for the tribe, information, it was for God, it was for monarchy, it was for everything else besides the self. And to create art for the self as a form of self-expression was considered maybe it was considered selfish, I'm not sure, but it just wasn't done. And, well, done popularly. Popularly. Basically, we owe it to those romantic poets like William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge. We owe it to Thomas Chatterton. We owe it to all these incredible romantic artists and painters, the fact that we can take a dance class for self-expression, that we can dress as a form of expression, that we can sing as a form of self-expression for ourselves and in therapy to ourselves. Like, we owe it to them. And I like to carry those names and their stories with me when I'm expressing for myself. In a way, it's sort of like they are our ancestors. They are the people that paved the way for us. You hold their stories with such reverence as you tell new ones, and how everything's cyclical and interconnected, and the past, present, and future are all merging together into the now. Yeah, anyway, I'm cold, so I'm gonna go inside. Thank you for listening.